Charlotte was determined to crawl like her older brother, so she observed when he crawled around and she tried to imitate him. She just did not have the strength to pull herself up. Alexander tried to help her learn to stand. It was a special occasion that day, and the whole family felt great spending time together. Each day was usually tackling one chore after another. Alexander and Carolyn had their first intimate moment after several months. It felt like old times. Carolyn baked a cake. It was William's birthday. Time went by so fast for the Morgans. The parents couldn't believe he was already aging into a toddler. Alexander in particular was really proud of what kind of person his son was becoming, and how much of a good heir he will be. William's toddler traits are silly and inquisitive. He has a wild imagination, and he's super curious about the world around him. To William's surprise, his father gave him a birthday gift. Neither he or his sister had very many toys, and Alexander saved up enough money to buy him a toy horse. William had very quickly earned his first toddler quirk. He was a messy eater. Alexander and William quickly developed a strict family dynamic. He wanted to shape his son into the perfect heir. Alexander immediately got to work on potty training William. He wanted less diapers to change as quickly as possible. The parents started to bring William outside more, so he could get familiar with the land around him. William was curious about everything around him. He babbled to the plants, and to his mother's dismay, he played in them. He also liked to play and dance with the chickens. His father warned him about being rough with the chickens because they could peck him, but the chickens seemed to be patient and friendly toward the toddler. Alexander took William farther out to meet Betsy. William was so fascinated by such a large creature. The cow also seemed to take a liking to the boy. Back inside, Charlotte finally hit the last of her important milestones. She learned to crawl, and she learned to stand on her own. Both parents were very excited and proud of her. Carolyn and William developed a strict family dynamic. William's attention from his mother was often turned to his little sister. He felt very hurt and forgotten about. He cried for attention by getting into things he wasn't supposed to and acting out. Carolyn tried to comfort him, but he refused any affection from her. William liked being outside with his father a lot better. He liked being out in the fresh air, spending time with his father, a lot better than inside with the girls. Alexander worked with William on his speech until he hit a milestone. He showered him with affection for his achievement. They roughhoused together like boys. William did not like it when it rained, and he couldn't come out to work with his father. Carolyn swept him up and brought him indoors. Days were the best when the whole family was together. Caroline had Charlotte on her back while she worked on the garden. William played with the chickens, and Alexander collected the eggs and cleaned the coop. Charlotte tried to talk to the chickens. They seemed to not like her as much. William tried to spend time with his baby sister. He entertained her with silly stories and blew raspberries on her belly. Alexander and Caroline brought their children out into town to the harbor. They rarely left their property. It was such a treat for William to explore the world. Life was great for the family of 4. Little did they know something was going to happen that would change their lives. It's 1774. It's Charlotte's birthday, and Caroline baked a cake the night before. Things felt somber as the tension between the colonists and the British grew. To celebrate, Caroline took the children out for a walk, while Alexander worked with the garden and animals. William was eager to run off and explore. His mother was not fond of him, running around the creek and getting dirty. William saw the most amazing waterfall he had ever seen. He thought it was funny to scare away the seagulls. William played in the sand while Carolyn dug around and collected things around the beach. Carolyn greeted her husband at the door when he came back in from fishing. Alexander greeted both his children inside. He missed them dearly. William told his father about everything he saw, from the creek to the waterfall, to the seagulls to the beach. It's time for cake. Charlotte was aging into a toddler. Both parents couldn't believe how big their little girl was getting. They were excited that their children were developing their own personalities and becoming full people and not just babies. Charlotte's toddler traits are inquisitive and independent. She's very curious like her brother, and she prefers to do everything on her own. William and Charlotte look like they could be twins. Both parents developed a strict family dynamic with Charlotte. Alexander tried to potty train Charlotte, but she did not want any help. She wanted to do it on her own. She developed her first two quirks. She hates being carried, further built upon her independent nature, and she loves water. Carolyn also developed the cheerful trait. Life was going well for her, and she hoped it would stay that way. Caroline gave Charlotte a gift for her birthday. It was a stuffed wolf. Alexander's warnings about the chickens were finally true. William got pecked at. Charlotte's love for water drew her to the washing tub, and she splashed in the water. That influenced her brother to start doing that as well. Carolyn scolded her for splashing in the washing tub. It was not ladylike. Charlotte developed her third quirk. She was a little singer. She loved to sing to her brother and to her parents. Unlike William, Charlotte was a little more fearful of the chickens. William was learning how to read. He finally developed another quirk. He loves books. As a toddler, Charlotte was quite the opposite than she was as a baby. She was not so needy. She did not want to be carried around, and often did not want help with her skills. She was practicing them on her own. She was improving her communication by talking to her brother and talking to the plants outside. This put some weight off her parents' shoulders. They were able to get back to their hobbies. Carolyn started painting again, and Alexander started woodworking again. Alexander and Caroline also started to rekindle their relationship. It took a steep decline when they were focusing all their time on chores and the children. Things were peaceful in the Morgan household, despite the chaos that was happening not far from home. It's 1775, and the day came where the Morgans received the dreadful news. The colonies have gone into a full-on war with the British, and all able-bodied men were needed to fight in this battle for independence. Alexander was a patriot and was enthusiastic to fight for independence from the British, but he was scared. He wanted to be there with his wife, and he wanted to watch his children grow up. He was afraid he would never see them again. He wasn't sure if he was cut out for war. Alexander needed some time alone to think about things. Telling his wife was hard enough, but telling his children he would be going away would be the hardest thing he would ever have to do. He was straight and honest with his children. He told them there was a war, and that he would be leaving and not be coming back for a very long time. Although upset, Charlotte was too young to grasp the gravity of the situation. William was hurt and heartbroken. His father would be leaving him, and he may never see him again. Alexander poured himself a glass of wine to escape his emotions. He thought out what to do before he had to leave. He fixed some things around the house, so everything would hopefully be easy for his family while he was away. Unfortunately, all their animals passed away from old age, and they didn't have the money to replace them, although that would create a huge financial burden on them, as a lot of their income came from selling eggs and milk. Taking care of the animals would not be his wife, nor his children's responsibility. Alexander would be leaving the next morning, so he spent his last night with the children. It would be the last time he would be tucking them in for a long time. Carolyn wanted to distract him from the thoughts of the war. She wanted to spend their last night together intimately. Alexander deeply regretted not spending enough time with his wife behind closed doors. It was time for Alexander to leave for war. He played with his children for the last time. Alexander embraced his wife for a long time. He promised her he would come back home safely, to her and the children. Carolyn promised she would keep him in her prayers. Alexander swept Carolyn with one more passionate kiss, and he said goodbye to Charlotte and William. He hoped he would one day get to see what kind of people his children would turn out to be. The family watched as Alexander walked away, off to fight for independence. William cried and cried. He did not want his father to go. Carolyn tried to comfort both of her children. For now, Caroline was left to raise 2 small children on her own. Things had not been easy since Alexander had left to fight in the war. The children cried for their father all the time. Caroline went back to knitting. She began to feel sick. It could have been from the stress from the war and the absence of her husband, but she had a gut feeling that she may be pregnant again. She couldn't be so sure yet. That was until she realized she really was. Her belly was growing. She was elated to be having another child, but she was afraid. She was going to be all alone having this baby. She was already struggling to take care of her 2 children on her own, and eventually she'd be doing that, and taking care of the garden while heavily pregnant. After she gives birth, she have 1 more mouth to feed. Gardening alone would not make their household enough money. Carolyn went out to fish like her husband, although she barely had any experience in it. She also collected things around the property that would be worth to sell. Carolyn had received a letter from her husband, letting her know he arrived at his encampment safely, and that he missed her and the children dearly. She wrote back and told him she was expecting another child. She also told him William and Charlotte miss him a lot, and they cried often. She wished he could be there to take care of her and help her have this baby. At 4 a.m, Caroline abruptly awoke to a loud banging on the door. She opened the door to see 4 British soldiers at her porch. They barged into her home without a word. Caroline was furious. She argued with the soldiers and they demanded they had a right to quarter in her home. William had awoken to all the chaos downstairs. There was nothing she could do. Her husband wasn't there, and they did not have any guns in their home. The soldiers took all the food she had prepared for her family. It was supposed to be their breakfast that morning. The situation had caused Caroline's morning sickness to intensify. The soldiers slept all around the house. William watched as one of the men slept. He woke him up and started to ask a lot of questions. The man was not amused. He had never had real visitors in his home before, but they were unwelcome visitors, and Caroline wanted to keep the children away from them. They seemed to be more peaceful than the ones she had read about in the paper, but she wanted her children to be safe. The toddlers had let out their energy by running around in the garden. Caroline had to prepare a lot of extra meals for the soldiers staying in her home. Thankfully, the soldiers kept to themselves, making themselves at home and not bothering anyone. Caroline also had to do the laundry in blazing hot temperatures. She was really worried about the kind of stress she was putting her body and her unborn child under. Her husband was off fighting in the war. Her children were way too little to do anything, and the soldiers did nothing to help out. She was completely on her own. After dinner, Caroline was putting her children down when she felt something burst and liquid flowed down her legs. Due to stress and overworking herself, Caroline prematurely went into labor. She was confused because she wasn't supposed to have the baby for another 3.5 months. She was only in her 2nd trimester. What she thought was normal fluids from her water breaking was blood. She bled everywhere in the house. She begged for help from the soldiers, but they ran off, leaving her all alone with her 2 small children, while in labor and fighting for her life. She was scared. She thought she was going to die. She immediately gave birth on the floor. "It's a boy." She named him Bartholomew, because this was a preterm labor. The risks of death are much higher. If the wheel lands on 2, 4, or 6, Carolyn dies. That was a close one. If the wheel hits 2, 4, or 6, the baby dies. He survives. Carolyn and the baby slept after the very traumatic birth. "Welcome to the world, Bartholomew Morgan,"